All right, so let's talk about the S25 Ultra versus the new 17 Pro Max here. Very exciting comparison. These are, two of the top flagships, especially here in the US. And let's go ahead and just dive into it. So I think first off, the design of the two phones. I personally this year really don't like the 17 Pro Max design at all. I think the S25 Ultra looks a lot better. In even the S25 Ultra, I'm not like crazy about the camera rings that they put on here, but I mean the 17 Pro Max, even though I've only had it for a few days, it just hasn't grown on me. I thought it would grow on me when saw it in person, but yeah, I just think it kind of looks really awkward as far as the camera department. But again, this is a very new design from Apple, so maybe I give it some more time. But right now, don't really like it. What I do like is the actual two-tone design. So there's a white color in the middle, and then you have your silver color, and you'll see this throughout the other colors as well. Like the orange one has a lighter orange in the middle. I do like that, but besides that, I just don't really like the way it looks. The S25 Ultra also very comfortable. I think it looks solid. Besides the thicker camera rings, I would prefer them to be thinner like the S24. But this year, both phones very comfortable to hold. The S25 I noticed is a little bit like squared off on the sides compared to the 17 Pro Max. Most people will put a case on their phones, so it is what it is. But when I'm in the house, I do like to use the phones without a case, so that's why I'm even bringing it up. But both phones are IP68 dust and water resistant, and when it comes to the weight, the S25 Ultra actually is going to feel a little bit lighter. It's actually coming in at 218 grams because of the titanium, and the iPhone, it does not have the titanium anymore, so we are coming in at 233 grams. And yeah, so IP68. We also do have very nice, strong glass on both of these phones, but like I said, most people put a case on it. So here's the thing about the hardware. So we have some cool little hardware features here. As we know, with the S25 here, we have the classic S Pen, which unfortunately has been nerfed a little bit. So there used to be, like on the S24, the Bluetooth S Pen, you could take a picture and video from a distance. You could skip songs with the pen as well too. You cannot do that because it's not Bluetooth anymore, and I really don't like how flimsy it feels because they took the Bluetooth out. It feels like very light, and it just makes it feel kind of like a toy. But yeah, so that is one thing that I don't like. But the pen still works. You can still use your pen features, and you can still do digital artwork with the pen. So it does work, but they kind of took away like a kind of pro feature about the stylus. And the iPhone has the camera control button. So this is a button where you could swipe through different settings, and you can take pictures with this button. And it also doubles as a visual intelligence button. So you just take a picture, search for it. It works pretty much like circle to search. So I bring that up a lot, but on circle to search, you would just hold this right here, and then you would just circle it. It works pretty much the same. But yeah, so the iPhone also has the action button, which pretty much is a universal button. You could also, there's ways that you can program Android buttons to do basically the same thing, but this works as a universal button, so you can program it to whatever you want, your favorite application or whatever. So both phones have some nice little hardware features, but for the most part, I think that's pretty much it. I really like the hardware on both, but I would say design wise, I really prefer the S25 Ultra. I think it just looks a lot better. And let me know what you guys think. All right, so we have some very good displays this year from both phones, as always. There are some, going to be some minor differences that I'll point out, but the S25 Ultra has a 6.9-inch display. It's the dynamic LTPO AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 2600 nits peak brightness, and it's a 1440p panel, 498 for the PPI. And then we also do have the anti-reflection coating on both of these phones as well. I do think the anti-reflection coating works a lot better on the S25 Ultra. It seems to do a better job at reflecting. And then we do have the Armor Gorilla Glass 2 on here as well. And the screen to body ratio is pretty good on both these phones. The S25 has a 92.5% screen to body ratio. And I think the main difference that you'll notice is the display shape, right? You have kind of more of a TV-like shape on the S25 Ultra, which you may like. And then also the punch hole is a lot smaller than Apple's, punch hole where they house the Face ID. They call it the Dynamic Island, which you can interact with the Dynamic Island, but I typically don't. So I personally prefer the S25's display, and I do like the vivid colors on the S25 as well too, especially when you turn the vividness slider up on the display settings. The iPhone also has a very good display. It's an LTPO XDR OLED panel. It's also 120 Hz. It's 3000 nits peak brightness. So the max brightness outdoors between these two phones are extremely similar. This one is 6.9 inches. It's a 90.7% screen to body ratio. So the bezels aren't quite as thin as the S25 Ultra, but they do look, really good. And then this has a resolution of 1320 by 2868, 460 for the PPI. This has a really strong glass, the Ceramic Shield 2 glass. But both phones do a pretty good job. I've never put a screen protector on my S25 Ultra, and I don't have any scratches at all. So I'm expecting the same from, the iPhone here. But very good displays on both, honestly. But I feel like the Galaxy's display is better. Like I said, the anti-reflection coating is a lot better on the S25. And I do like the smaller punch hole and the more vivid color. So me personally, I'm going with the S25 here. Both phones do an excellent job with performance, great specs on both. It's kind of gotten to a point with these phones where, they're both extremely, even last year's phones, extremely fast. So the whole kind of speed difference and speed test is kind of irrelevant because it's just gotten to a point where these phones are extremely fast. The S25 Ultra, it does have the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor, 256 gigs of internal storage, 12 gigs of RAM, and we get 7 years of MageOS updates, which is really nice. And iOS 26 we have on the 17, the Apple A19 chipset, and 256 gigs and 12 gigs of RAM. This is running One UI 8. And you can see the multi-core and single-core scores here, very similar. Like I said, both phones are going to be extremely similar in performance. That's why a lot of these companies, they don't really talk about the performance jump like that, because even if we look at an S23 Ultra or an iPhone 14 Pro Max, they're going to perform very similar for most people. Even when we talk about gaming performance, the cooling is a little bit better and you get better FPS. Like if we go into 3D Mark here, as you guys can see here, we get a slightly better score in the Galaxy. But the speed and animations, how most people would use their phones, like multitasking, swiping, and all that stuff, it's gonna feel extremely similar. So I would say it's not a real difference here. Like if this was maybe a few years ago, I would say probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, the speed test would be more relevant, I guess. But right now, they've got the animations down so well on Android and iOS. It really just, the speed is just extremely similar. They feel very similar. There are different the way you scroll is a lot faster on Android, which is something that I really like. You have a really slow scroll on the iPhone. But like I said, for general app opening and multitasking, the phones are going to feel extremely similar. I have zero heating issues with either of these phones, so none of them really have given me any problem with heating and gaming performance. So I would say performance-wise, it's not really a big deal. They're going to perform the same. We hop into PUBG here. And like I said, guys, performance very good on both. So if you're a heavy user, I'm talking about gaming, emulators, video editing, we're talking about some awesome performance from both of these phones. Same thing with the iPhone as well. 120 frames. So just an excellent experience. Like I said, these phones are extremely similar in performance. When you pay over $1,000 for a flagship, it better be able to do, pretty much everything you want. So these two phones, not that different for what most people are going to be doing, even if you're a more extreme user gaming, video editing, emulators, stuff like that. Both phones are extremely fast. Now, where both phones do differ is, I think, the software, right? I do still consider One UI to be a little bit more advanced compared to iOS, especially in terms of customization. And then also other little things like Samsung desktop support is, very useful. You can literally turn this into like a little mini computer. But also just Android in general is a lot more customizable than the iOS 26, which is doing a really good job. They've added a lot of stuff to customize the OS. But once you put good lock on this phone, it's like a whole different, universe of customization. So another thing I want to mention, if you are somebody that really likes the AI assistant, you are 100% going to go with the S25 Ultra. Gemini is extremely smart. I'm always impressed with it, and it is actually able to do things that you ask it to do and give you answers. Apple Intelligence seems like it's behind, and it's just kind of strange how behind it is. So just for example, how much does the iPhone 17 Pro Max 2TB cost? Can you tell me how much it cost? Can you tell me how much the iPhone 17 Pro Max 2TB cost? So we had to jump through hoops just to get an answer. It had to literally pull up ChatGPT and then watch how much quicker it is on the Gemini. How much does the iPhone 17 Pro Max 2TB cost?
The unlocked iPhone 17 Pro Max with 2TB of storage costs $1,999 USD at full retail price.
I don't understand why the Apple Intelligence isn't able to give me just a basic answer. I run into this issue a lot. That's why I never really use it, because it's just not useful. Like, you have to ask it a question, ask it again, click Chat GPT, it starts loading, then it'll give you the answer. It just takes too long to get a simple answer out of this thing. Let's see how both phones do with the AI object eraser. So, okay. Click erase. Alright, so the Galaxy here did I think a little bit better job. It kind of filled in the pixel box right here. We don't have that weird kind of like smudge right here on like we do on the iPhone. The iPhone completely messed up the box. So again, I just think as time goes on, if this is already like not that great, then I can just see what Samsung and what Google is doing to just get better over time. So I would say I would go with the Android or just the Galaxy AI. Check out these speakers at max volume. Let's start with the 17. Yeah, the 17 Pro Max is definitely louder. It's actually surprising considering that the S25 is actually pretty loud. Yeah, just the bass is way loud. Just the overall sound is just louder. Yeah, so both speakers this year actually sound pretty similar in terms of sound quality, which is pretty unique because usually you have a different kind of sound with the iPhone. but they kind of sound pretty similar this year. But the iPhone just sounds just a little bit louder. The bass is louder, but I think that's pretty impressive because the S25 is actually very loud just in general. So yeah, so I would definitely give it to the iPhone there because they both sound similar this year, but this one is just louder. There's no distortion or anything like that, so I'm pretty impressed with that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the security or biometrics. I think Android has, just does this a lot better in my opinion. You have the fingerprint scanner, which I prefer over Face ID any day. But if you do want to use Face Unlock, you do have that on Android, but I really prefer the fingerprint scanner. It's just more consistent for me personally. Face ID works very well, but something that I wish Apple would do is put Touch ID in the power button just to give you the dual option. Because sometimes Face ID, depending on like the angle, because if you have like your iPhone on the stand, I run into this issue where it just won't register for me. And yeah, sometimes like if you're waking up and you have to open both eyes and stuff like that, so I just find the fingerprint scanner better for me personally. So I feel like that's a advantage to the Galaxy here. All right, so let's talk about the cameras here. The S25 Ultra has a 200 megapixel standard, a 10 megapixel periscope telephoto, that's a 3 times, and then we have another 50 megapixel periscope telephoto, that's a 5 times, and this will get you up to that 100 times zoom. We also have a 50 megapixel ultra wide. We can shoot in 8K 24 and 30 with a 12 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. 17 does have a 48 megapixel standard, a 48 megapixel periscope telephoto. It is a 4 times optical zoom, and now we can get it all the way up to 40 times zoom here. We also have a 48 megapixel ultra wide, 4K 120 frames on the 17, and then we also do have an 18 megapixel selfie camera that also shoots in 4K 60. All right, so as far as your screen on time, both these phones are all-day phones very easily. So if you're trying to decide which phone is going to be better screen on time, that's not really a deciding factor in my opinion because they both last all day for what most people are going to do on their phones. Even if you are gaming, using a GPS heavy, stuff like that, it's not going to matter because the S25 and the 17, it does a fantastic job of screen on time. So I wouldn't make that a deciding factor. And honestly, the charging specs are kind of underwhelming on both as well. You have 45 watt charging on the S25. You do have your wireless charging. It is Qi 2. And then we also have reverse wireless charging, which the iPhone does not have. And yeah, the battery specs are similar. Like the eSIM model on the 17 is basically a 5,088 milliamps. The S25 is also a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And then you also do have 25-watt MagSafe charging on the 17, which is pretty nice. So that is, technically a little bit faster than the S25, of course. But it's just not terribly impressive, the battery specs on these phones, as far as I'm talking about, like charging speeds. But yeah, both phones are very similar when it comes to screen on time. So I wouldn't really consider that an issue on either phones. You can easily get I'm usually able to average around like 6-7 hours of screen on time on both of these phones. So even though like each year they say there's a improvement, but there's like a slight improvement every year, because you can get similar screen on time with last year's models as well too. So it's not like it's like this crazy jump in performance. But yeah, so what do you guys think? Which phone would you guys go with? Be sure to let me know. I'll catch you guys in the next one.